Every story is boring without an interesting open, and this one starts off with a pile of dead bodies. A man stumbles his way through, escaping the tendrils of the dark. The one thing he remembers is facing off a terrifying monster who tore apart his flesh, until he was saved by a majestic golden knight. The scarlet-haired warrior defeated the monster to rescue him, but unfortunately, he had already lost far too much blood. His vision fades to black as the mysterious angel comforts him. It's because of the actions of one man that the world has been saved. However, his own life is withering away and can't be saved. Even then, all he could do was stare at the soft gaze of the Valkyrie, who soothed him until his final breath. An average dude became a hero and saved his world, and ultimately met his demise. Back then, he had no idea that he would have to once again take on the role of the savior of the world. But before that, let's start from the beginning. Noah Brown finds himself drifting among the endless abyss, questioning his experience fighting a monster before his death. Out of nowhere, a monstrous eldritch god greets him as the incarnation of the void. After recreating his soul, the gods want to use him for a unique code that belongs to his soul. The young man feared angering the eternal god and reached within his soul, activating the astral system, which reveals that the code has fused with his soul. This revelation angered the Lovecraftian being because it can no longer separate the code from his body. The incarnation of the void tries to make him a puppet under his heel, but Noah refuses the god's offer, knowing that nothing can come out of it. As an advantage for him, he doesn't get a lawyer or any proof that the godly creature is telling the truth. The system offers to make a pact with the god, but Noah hesitates because he feels like the entity is hiding a secret. Sensing his refusal, the dark entity swallows his soul, declaring that there is no other way out of his situation. The malicious entity of the void decides to collect the seal from his dead body after his death, but Noah stands resolute and rejects the god. The eldritch entity tempts him by awarding him the status of a god amongst mortals. But Noah doesn't back down, refusing to accept the monster's words. Breaking free, he decides to form a pact with the astral god, promising that he will not conspire against them. Our smart protagonist understands that the all-powerful being cannot kill him because it would have done so already. The incarnation of the void accepts his terms and officializes a pact with him, allowing the use of a unique power. Noah's body is tossed into the realm of Arendir, where a group of mad cultists are chanting at their gods to summon a being from beyond. And guess what he's the one they've summoned, thinking that it's a creature of the void. As they offer him a blood sacrifice for their demands, the crazy-ass cultist executioner draws his sword and pleads to the creature of the abyss to accept the woman as an offering. To be honest, I think anyone would fold in under 5 seconds if the offering looks that much of a baddie anyway. Our boy doesn't have any clue what's going on. 1 second ago, he was talking to Cthulhu's dad and the ruler of Cosmos or whatever, and in the next moment, he's being hailed as the creature of the abyss. Completely helpless, he turns to his system screen for any clues or insight into what's going on. The system screen pulls up with a quest generation screen, followed by a menu screen which highlights 4 tabs of abilities, skills, perks, and finally quests. Noah's current quest is to use this smartest strategy that mankind has ever created to fucking run. Right now, he's in a threatening location, and the people here are mad cultists who could really make his life a living hell. Our boy doesn't even focus on the reward while gathering himself. He's just busy taking in the situation, realizing that he's amongst crazy worshippers. They're treating him as some kind of powerful entity instead of running away. Noah leans into the persona of an angry entity and roars at one of the cultists to tell him where he's been summoned after being called from the void. Quivering little cultist can barely hold himself together and explains that he's in the realm of Arendir, summoned for sacrifice in exchange for an awakened life, dialing up his acting skills to an Oscar-level performance. Bro genuinely acts like they pissed off a powerful entity who is enjoying his sleep. This puts the pressure on the cultists even more, who quickly appeal to him, explaining that he can enter the material realm at will, since he's a powerful being. Once again, Noah has very little to go off of. His tiny brain is out here, pushing brain cells to come up with a solution. The system comes to his rescue at last, and after tapping into the perks menu, our boy learns that he has something called the Identify skill, something that every awakened being possesses. To cut the explanation short, think of it like an appraisal skill that lets him identify and inspect details. So our boy quickly performs a test on the same random dude in front of him. The skill provides basic details, like the association of the cultist and the association of the executioner. But beyond that, it doesn't really say anything. Not even for the 5-star meal of a baddie sleeping in front of him. Of course, Noah understands that. The woman must be feeling uneasy about being offered as a sacrifice for a damn deity, so he thinks it's best to help free her. But the question is how this dude needs a proper distraction, and in order to utilize it, he checks his items menu, opening a list of inventory. Bro only has one scroll, so he grabs a hold of it from his inventory, testing its capabilities hilariously. The cultists think that the creature of the abyss is capable of using teleportation abilities, but I actually like this reasoning for the system, because it provides a perfect excuse in front of other people anyway. The scroll pops open. A long essay about the realm of a reindeer and his purpose here. It outlines a termination clause too. So if our boy breaks the pact, his soul is going to experience a pain worse than stepping on a Lego. Our boy realizes that he has to do with the best of what he has. So he roars out to the cultists to free the woman. And in exchange, he will grant their request. Apparently the dude wants her as his servant, but for some reason, the cultists appear disoriented and start chatting amongst each other. Noah asks to confirm if they're refusing his order. Terrified, one cultist stands up and explains that it's just a shocking event for them. After all, every other pact in history has required at least one sacrifice. Every pact except this one. Noah raises his hand to cease the chatter of the crowd. Then he goes up to the lady and whispers the truth to only her, explaining how he has no idea how he got here. His only instructions for her is to act like he's got her under his command. Man, I love the way this dude knows how to gaslight the crowd to execute his brilliant acting. Noah roars at the woman to rise up as his servant. Things were going exactly as planned, until the chief and leader of the cult arrived, questioning what the hell was happening. This is terrible news for our boy, who curses out in horror. One of the cultists informs his leader about the summoning of the great being and how he enslaved a woman that was offered as a sacrifice. Hilariously, the chief screams at the top of his lungs, correcting his idiot followers that what they summoned is just a human. The chief demands an immediate capture over his head, but our boy is quick on the draw and lunges at the executioner, tackling him down. Unfortunately, he failed his first system quest to run away. So his second quest is to kill the assholes and fight his way out. I don't know about you guys, but a main character failing their first mission is a fresh sight to see anyway. Noah's got the executioner down, dropping the key of our next up. This man mercilessly rockets a few punches in the bald head's damn face. After a few dozen punches, the guy is left a shattered mess with his body trembling all around. Noah continues the beat down when suddenly he spots the golden key and quickly reaches out to grab it. After catching the key, he prepares to throw it against the captured woman. So she can free herself. Our boy does manage to throw the key, but he quickly realizes that the executioner also acquired his sword. The fight has quickly become a standoff between a swordsman and Conor McGregor. Both of them lunge forth, with the executioner roaring at the top of his lungs. Suddenly, to our boy's shock, a bunch of shadowy tendrils quickly tangle around his body, restraining him from moving. This is bad news because the executioner quickly uses this as a chance to drill the blade inside Noah's chest, slicing his health all the way down to a critical value. Terror sets in as the executioner quickly pulls his blade out of his body, leaving our boy coughing blood in agony. The executioner prepares his sword to finish him off, and right as his sword is about to impale Noah a second time, a powerful flame spell intervenes, saving Noah's life and grilling the bald head alive until he becomes a medium rare steak. The realization sets, and it's the sexy muscle mommy from before, and she looks pissed. The rest of the cultists quickly try to attack her, but honestly she incinerates them with just a wave of fire, which genuinely makes me wonder how she got captured in the first place. The Flame Warden packs heat, even when she is surrounded by dozens of cultists, to take them all out in one clean move. She spirals her immense flames around them all, grilling them alive, seeing his little lackeys get utterly demolished by the Flame Warden. The cult leader steps in to deal with her. As for our boy, Noah is struggling to crawl his way to the sword, while a cultist quickly dashes towards him to finish him off. Unfortunately, his health reaches a life-threatening 8%, however. Noah isn't a pussy. This man is going to die on his knees fighting it out. So he channels his inner Jon Snow and takes the blade, impaling his attacker while this is happening. The astral spirit gleefully watches from a shadow. The cultist's body flops to the ground, confirming our boy's first blood. The system quickly pops up a bunch of notification screens for him. He's 1/10 of his way to reach a source of infinite potential. Not just that he's cleared his first quest to kill someone and obtained experience points. As a reward for it, The system expresses the completion of his secret quest as well. For freeing Aurelia Frooster, the Fire Warden entering a start of dizziness, our boy recollects himself as the system grants him experience. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a specific class or a path to use the points. So at the edge of his fleeting life, he is given the opportunity to choose. Noah's body collapses as a pool of blood exits his chest. The dude thinks it's a shame that he died the moment he got his second life. Apparently, Truck Cohen didn't show him any mercy this time. Noah enters a void-like state, dangling in the hands of the abyss, as the system officially kickstarts his awakening process, transporting him to the astral space again. He opens his eyes again, questioning where the hell they've sent his ass for round 3. But to his surprise, Noah spots an arcade machine in front of him and recalls his experience of having never been to an arcade. In a long time, as he's collecting himself, he spots a dude that looks just like him, sitting at the receptionist desk. Dylan the Chillin' waves him hello, while our boy gives him a snarky look and demands to know where he is. As he's whining around complaining about the gods, Dylan acts like a good host and simply hears him out. Noah is practically seething with rage and honestly. After dying 2 times in a row and losing the hot baddie, I will be too the chill dude asks for a minute to explain everything. First off, he introduces himself in a polite manner, explaining that he's just a figment of Noah's subconscious. So much so that he doesn't even have a last name of his own. It bothers our boy to hear that, but he listens to Dylan's words closely and learns that he's from the endless void. In fact, he is the literal representation of the void that emerged when Noah formed a pact with the astral god. Hearing this, our boy enters a contemplative state and starts walking towards one of the arcade machines. He fiddles around with his arcade stick, and questions if this place is supposed to represent his arcade script. The machine quickly turns on, revealing the system screen, imploring him to select up to 3 paths. Before we explore more of the arcade script, let's actually understand what an arcade script is. Dylan explains that the script is part of one's soul. Think of it like the physical form of magic. Now the arcade that is present here is actually determined by Noah's subconscious. The arcade is called an astral space, a place of familiarity for Noah. The details of the arcade are so accurate that it reminds our boy of his childhood days. As he's fidgeting around with the pad, Noah wants to know of his purpose, being brought here in the first place. Glasses Guy expresses that he's not a caretaker or a teacher to help someone awaken, but this specific circumstance is unique. So first off, he instructs Noah to tap on the first button. Our boy does exactly that, popping open an Astral Fighter prompt and the assigning of his character. The prompt quickly changes to a set of paths. Each path encompasses a class like Warrior Martial Artist, Thug Mage, and more the goal is to pick any 3 paths. And each path is governed by a total of 4 attributes. To weigh them against each other: power, constitution, agility, and finally mystic. These attributes rank the scope of the ability. And over time, each path allows the attributes to grow and become even stronger. The paths that are of the highest caliber allow for amazing, immediate growth, but their drawback is that they have very little room to grow. In the future, Noah decides to test the idea by selecting a warrior. If he picks this class, he'll have a natural aptitude for fight and gain a free point for every level, just like the warrior class. Our boy quickly tests out the rest of the paths and realizes that they're pretty similar to the warrior path. Of course, Dylan emphasizes that he can always check out more paths on the rest of the machines, an idea that Noah actually agrees with, because he genuinely doesn't like these crappy options. Bro is out here playing character select at this point anyway. Dylan guides him to another machine encompassing the healer class. Instead of damage, our boy quickly checks it out and learns that there are only 4 paths under this category. The options are tempting, especially since Noah isn't in the mood to fuck around and die again. Surprisingly, Dylan reveals to him that our boy is actually already dead. It's just his body has entered a state of extremely slowed time, allowing him to awaken before his death. And right after he chooses his paths, he'll return back to the near-dead state he had. By the way, this basically confirms that if our boy doesn't pick a path that heals him instantly, he's cooked the moment he responds. Interestingly, Noah catches his eye on the Exsanguinator class. Admittedly, it's a rare class, allowing one to deal damage and heal themselves as long as they keep on killing other creatures. The only requirement is a good understanding of biology, but the rewards are pretty good, awarding 2 points per level. Dylan thinks it's a nice option to explore, especially when both of his needs are covered. Excited, Noah finalizes his option and goes on to select 2 more paths. By the way, Dylan is actually pretty damn sneaky. He tells Noah to select a legendary class called the Void's Herald. And though it's freaking busted, by awarding 10 attributes on each level up. Noah fully understands that he'll permanently become a slave of the deity if he selects this option. That's why he wants to pick options specifically aimed for helping out his strategy. A while passes and our boy's looking convinced with his selections. He picked Astral Walker and Void Hunter as his second and third paths. Both of them uniquely allow for multiple points for each level up and a very low cost finally. All 3 paths are finalized, and Noah is prompted with a selection confirmation screen. At last our boy confirms his selection. But the moment he does, terror starts looming all over him. Tendrils of the dark invade his consciousness. I want you guys to imagine the safest space you can think of, and then think about an eldritch being invading that space and pulling you in. That's basically what's happening to Noah right now as he succumbs to the darkness. Remember Dylan the Chillin'? That guy is looking at him with a sinister smile, revealing that there is one last detail he forgot to tell him. The first awakening process is excruciatingly painful. By the end, our boy curses the shit out of Dylan for leaving out something like that. As his body gets divulged into the darkness, the system quickly follows through with 3 notifications, implying all 3 of his paths being awakened. With each path unlocked, he gains 1 new ability. Under them, there's Blood Drain, Blink, and the Obliterate ability. And his overall rank has also increased to F. His stats jump considerably, standing at a 4 for power, 2 for agility, 3 for constitution, and finally 6 to mystic. A total of 14 attribute points are for him to spend as per his liking. For leveling up in the very next scene, our boy opens his eyes, he's back. His bleeding body barely having the energy to get up, accessing the blood drain ability of the Exsanguinator path. Noah quickly drains the blood on the floor and quickly starts replenishing some of his health. His health goes up to 11% as he flips over, relishing the sight of his survival. Let's go back to the scene of the cult chief, facing off against the Flame Warden. Things aren't looking great for the girl because she's getting bitch slapped by the old man. The cult leader stares her down like he's a tailed beast from Naruto. However, always remind yourself to never lose faith in a muscular baddie. She's still going even after her flames have been extinguished. At this moment, the system comes up with an immediate quest to kill the cult leader. It's a hard level mission, but the reward is a rare ability. Hilariously, the system apparently loves messing around and also reminds him not to die as an optional objective. Aurelia prepares to face off against the Shadow Tendril, which quickly tries to slap her again. But thanks to her shredded bicep, she can apparently easily block it without any problems. Next up, she cooks a blazing fist and starts unleashing her fury against the mad old man. The cult leader is out here laughing at her futile attempts. Both fighters make the clash as fire goes up against the shadows, while they're having the brawl of the century. Our boy is out here busy reading an essay from the system and questioning what he's supposed to do. Inspecting his status screen, he gathers that he has 14 points to his name strategy comes to mind. Noah can potentially use these points on one singular attribute, or he could spread them out evenly. He decides to go with the second option, allowing for each of his attributes to experience an even buff. Back to the scene of the fight. Aurelia is genuinely getting close to hurting the old man. She returns back down to gain some ground. The Flame Warden then smashes her fists against the floor, causing the debris to burst out, with each punch smashing against the rocks. More and more spurred out, allowing her to manipulate the stones and hurl them all quickly in the old man's face. The cult leader realizes that he's in trouble and quickly forms a binding defense to ensure he doesn't get hurt. Unfortunately for Aurelia, none of her flames directly connect with her opponent. While this is happening, Noah quickly grabs a sword and then reaches for his inventory, placing it inside for later. He quickly checks on the fight and sees Aurelia crashing like a rag doll into the wall, with her completely defeated. The fight is left up to our boy to do Spider-Man's job and defeat Dr. Octopus, Mr. Gaslighter. Promax the Third over here tries to word his way out of the situation. Noah tells the cult leader that he's a messenger of the void and has come to deliver a message. Of course, the cult leader thinks it's a stupid lie, but our boy uses the scroll to his advantage and shows him that he's not kidding around. Victoral is genuinely tweaking out, and it appears that Noah's words are starting to get to him. Our boy fools him by saying that he's here to award the cult leader for his devotion to the void, and that's why he's brought him a message. Victoral takes a look at the message, and it seems like he's starting to buy the story until he suddenly gets even more enraged that a human tried to shame the void for his words. This situation goes from 0 to 100 as the tendrils are about to slaughter our boy again. In this instance, he uses his second ability called Blink, allowing an instant teleportation to escape the situation. It appears that Noah can stop time temporarily and readjust his position anyway. He knows he's got to fight his way out now, so he equips the sword from his inventory, loads it at full strength, and chucks it with immense speed towards his opponent. By the way, while he's doing all of this, time is still frozen, so it seems like the duration is at least 10 seconds or more. The blade pierces the old man's body, gushing out blood that was a considerable attack, enough to stagger the old man for a moment. Quickly, Noah instructs Aurelia to do her job and finish him off. The Flame Warden steps up, ready to finish the fight with her own hands. As she charges at the cult leader, Aurelia connects the blow with a hit so hard that I can feel it through the screen. Victral's body is sent flying to the nearest wall. Oh, but that's not all. This fierce woman decides to go ballistic on the old man, charging dozens of flame punches over and over against his body. He's probably lost the only remaining brain cells he had. Finally, she finishes it off with an amazing kick, ending the man's life at the defeat of the cult leader. The system informs our boy of his quest completion, boosting all of his paths and helping him level up. It's done. Noah and Aurelia are the victors, and our boy has unlocked himself another ability. However, the battle has taken a clear toll on him as he flops to the ground in exhaustion. The Flame Warden comes over to his side, charging him with a lot of questions, starting with the fact that he got summoned through a circle. Our boy can't even catch a break, while this baddie is already making plans to kill him if he betrays her later on, because she still thinks he might be a monster. To ease her distrust, Noah expresses that he's a human, but the moment she inquires if he's from this world, he goes silent. Here's the problem. He doesn't know if she'll end up killing him or not, for being a foreigner of another planet. Still, Noah tests his luck and reveals the truth, stating that he's not from this realm. Clearly, she's not impressed, because she thinks he might be associated with the cultists. But our boy clarifies that it's not the case, and that he doesn't even know any people from this world. The distrustful Aurelia demands to know the answers, even though he expresses clearly that he doesn't know any groups. Regaining her patience, the Flame Warden apologizes for treating him with sudden distrust. She's truly grateful for what he did. It's just that she experienced a fresh betrayal today with her own adventuring party. That's why she's having a hard time adjusting. Noah tells her about his system's quest, but she doesn't get a word of what he's saying at all. He even tries to explain it through the logic of an RPG game, but this woman has never heard of that either. She stands confused while he's out here looking lost, realizing that it's helpless to talk about his system. Our boy simply introduces himself as Noah and reveals that he was reborn into this world. But his explanation doesn't add up in her eyes, because no one just resurrects out of the blue unless a god willed it. And not just that he somehow knew about her name, but that's only because the system told him. Regardless, he's just as clueless as her and doesn't know what's going on. The Flame Warden tells him that foreigners from the other world are exceptionally rare, and that's why she wanted to question him. But from his demeanor, he has gained her trust, without any explanation. Aurelia quickly sits down and starts meditating. Instead of escaping, Noah questions her thought process. While his words truly make her feel like he's a foreigner, she explains to him the importance of meditation to replenish one's mana. She can also sense that he's low on mana and should do the same. Noah is surprised to learn about the aura that he possesses. Not the TikTok one, the real one. Every awakened being shares an aura. But apparently, our boy is the first of his kind to access such a privilege. He even jokes around by telling her that they only have magic tricks. If anything, she's rather surprised that he chose the exsanguinator path. Of all things, especially when he's a newbie to magic, it suddenly makes him wonder if he's made a mistake of some kind. Aurelia assures him that he's going to be fine, unless he ends up learning necromancy, or some creepy shit to piss off the Adventurers Guild curiously. He wants to know about the guild, but she shuts him up to continue meditating. The system screen pops up and allows him to use the skill of meditation. Not just that, there's now a mana point bar located underneath his health bar too. Now, while he's waiting for his mana to replenish back, he makes good use of his time by bumping up all of his attributes. As for his 3 abilities, they're all the same level, and he's tested about 2 of them. His curiosity gets the better of him, so he inspects the Obliterate ability, realizing that it helps him annihilate anything and everything in his path. Bro is suddenly capable of using Gojo's purple technique, harnessing its power in his hand. He actually depletes his own health just by holding it. He's glad to have taken up the exsanguinator path, or else he couldn't heal from such issues. A while later, the meditation is complete, and both are fully replenished when it comes to their mana. Aurelia thinks it's a good time to start moving. She goes up to the old man's corpse and discovers what she was looking for. This gold bracelet is actually a storage item for space mat. Think of it as an inventory item, and its contents can be easily accessed by taking it back to the city. Now it makes our boy wonder if he can also freely manipulate his inventory and form it into an object to easily access it in front of others. Aurelia points out the one flaw of storage devices. All of them are bloodbound to their user, meaning they can't be accessed even after the user has died. He rummages his corpse to find a key and thinks that if that doesn't work out, they'll meet outside, help for the cause. Inspecting the bracelet on his own for a moment, Noah manages to interact with it using his inventory. What he does next is quite interesting. He teleports the items stored inside the bracelet back into his actual inventory. Think of it like a transfer. Lucky for him, our boy has just found himself a great deal of valuables, like mana stones and potions, as well as weapons. Aurelia doesn't even know that he's already transferred, and somehow, Noah quickly surprises her with the golden key she was looking for. Noah reveals that he discovered a lot of stuff in the storage device, and he lists out the items too. This stuns her completely because, as explained earlier, it's impossible for any person to transfer or look into the contents of a storage item without its key. Noah returns her the key and quickly changes his outfit. Thanks to accessing a set of clothes from his inventory, Bro completes his outfit check, posing like a model even though his clothes are dirty and torn. Another object that strikes his attention is the Ring of Abyssal Eye, which appears like a cursed object. Flame Warden explains that it's not really cursed, but rather disgusting to look at. It also helps one to have an overall greater mana capacity. Quickly, our boy slips on the ring despite hating the way it looks. With the ring equipped, he inherits its boost in mana as well as other sensory boosts. Flame Baddie tosses the corpse of the old man away, and thanks to the ring's perception boosting ability, Noah can finally see the absolute unit that this woman is. She's classed at level 68 because Noah's the missing one from completing her 69. Anyway, our boy is satisfied when he quickly takes control of his epic daggers from the inventory, playing around to his heart's content. Aurelia decides to go up to the corpse of the executioner, preparing a burst of flame in her hand. As she inquires if it's the first time Noah has killed someone, she deduced accurately, because she's been in this line of work to know about these things. Aurelia burns the corpses and explains her motivation to continue working is because of money, fame, and respect. But the one thing that she loves doing the most is helping others. That's the noble reason behind her actions, and why she wants to purge the evil from their world, understanding that killing someone can be a delicate moment for them. Aurelia asks if our boy regrets his decision to do it. Without wasting a breath, Noah sharply answers that he doesn't regret his choices for killing someone to save his own life. She loves his answer, reminding him that these guys are terrible people who would have gone on to raise hell for other people. So in that regard, they did a good job by getting rid of some shady associates of her team. Pulling a book from his inventory, Noah curiously asks her if he'd become a good adventurer. She backs him up, confirming that even without having a high level, he performed well for the tools he had. First, he freed her in a situation where he didn't possess all the information. Then he was patient throughout the process, and finally de-escalated the situation with the best way he could manage. Hearing those words soothes Noah's conscience, and he thinks his stupid job interviews from his previous world finally ended up seeing some use anyway. He wants to know about the activation process of the artifacts. He obtained the simple answer is ritual magic. A ritual circle is needed for that. But right as she's about to draw one for him, something happens, as he's able to access the book without any medium or circle at all. Once again, Aurelia is left completely stunned, because this isn't normal in their world. The Tome of Sight opens its knowledge to Noah, allowing him a chance to earn another ability. The Tome of Sight adjusts to any one of the 3 paths he has access to. Our boy decides to go for the Void Hunter path, unlocking his special eye. Furthermore, the ring amplifies the ability and allows it to jump up to level 3. Think of it as a mind's eye literally. When Noah reopens his eyes, he experiences a level of perception unlike anything else. Think of Gojo's 6 eyes ability. It's basically like that. And now he's getting a proper eye-sky experience of a lifetime. Meanwhile, Aurelia is looking at him confused. He tells him that what he's seeing is called an aura, just like the mystical aura surrounding his own body. Noah celebrates in joy while she fails to understand his Gen Z slang, thinking that sick literally means to be unwell. Consuming the second book, He assigns the Tome of Infliction to his Exsanguinator path, helping unlock another ability called Bleed. This one renders a bleed status effect on his enemies, and the same effect can be applied to weapons as well. Once again, it's an ability so uncommon that Aurelia thinks it should belong to a rare or higher category. Before proceeding any further, she hands him a shitty mana stone to eat, but she actually gave him this one for a reason. Because if he consumes anything of a higher caliber, he'll succumb to mana poisoning. At first, his body will experience a power boost, but shortly after the poison will take over. And if he's stupid enough to take an even higher grade than that, his body will experience a temporary strength boost before being completely paralyzed. It's a painful way to die. By the way, while she's flexing her body, Bro is out here simping for her shredded physique. Consuming a mana stone 3 grade higher is the worst outcome, because the person's body will literally explode, granting an instant death. But that's a lucky scenario, because if it doesn't explode, his body will melt down, his flesh and organs, as he suffers the most painful death imaginable. Yeah, this man better be careful about these stones. The duo starts exiting the hideout, while Aurelia explains that she's looking for a storage chamber to reap any valuables. Also, she's trying to find an object or a clue for a person, the one she was sent here to look for. This makes Noah question if there are other people around. And as it turns out, there's a small underground dungeon nearby where these cultists store their captives. Unfortunately, she was the last surviving person of the bunch. Before proceeding further, she makes sure to warn him about the traps, or even certain monsters that could pop out of nowhere. The duo marches ahead, looking around for any clues. They stumble across a room where Aurelia requests the storage bracelet from him. She grabs it, equips it, and issues a swirl of flame before raising her arm, releasing a beaming golden light that acts as a torch. In front of them is a wall of text, with hieroglyphics beyond Noah's understanding. Having seen the cultists commit terrible atrocities, he is convinced that human nature is just as violent in every world. The Flame Warden wisely tells him that people are easily misled when it comes to the promise of power and having the wrong beliefs. When it comes to these terrible people, they knew exactly what they were doing as adults. Aurelia goes around checking the floor, spotting a unique section that seems like a trap. She thinks it's best to jump over it so they don't fall into it. But it appears that Noah's mind is drifting off to his thoughts. He wants to know about the fate of the people who were misguided and fell under the influence of the cult. To explain that part, Ariel fleshes out what happened over the span of a millennia. The priest of Helion is always there to fight the abyss. And while her ritual can free someone from the influence of the dark abyss, it's also a cruel one as it burns your body. This form of practice is known as a punishment for the cultists, typically done to execute them publicly. And the ones who end up surviving such a ritual are forever changed. Hearing this makes Noah's blood boil, because in the same manner, a poor and misguided child could have been sacrificed all the same. Aurelia emphasizes that the fate was the same for everyone, a painless and quick death, having avoided the set of spikes. They continue walking ahead and discover a unique door. The door appears to have a magic barrier locking it out, so Aurelia takes it into her hands by literally punching a damn hole through it. The impact of her punch is so damn massive that it leaves a shockwave behind. Even our boy congratulates her for inventing a new way to unlock a door. Entering the room, Ariel and Noah discover the leader's study chambers. However, nothing is special among these books. Adopting the mindset of an evil cult leader, Noah suggests that all the good stuff must be placed elsewhere. He walks around interacting with a book and stumbles across a rare find. This one is called the Skill Book of Advanced Abyssal Call, allowing one to call the creatures of the void. The system wants him to either accept or decline the skill, but our boy is far too busy searching for the secret loot, rather than focusing his attention on another skill. Aurelia grows concerned when she sees this guy, dropping a few books on the ground, based on his knowledge from movies, expecting to use a book to open some kind of secret door. At last, he's able to discover the secret keyhole, reaching for his inventory. Noah retrieves the golden key and quickly unlocks the gate. Upon unlocking, the library shifts around and twists open to a secret room. Yep, definitely like the movies. While Aurelia is shocked, our boy says that it's an obvious thing to consider from their world. But this is where things get really horrifying. The room is dark and there's blood everywhere. So the fire warden lights up her firefly ability to help navigate the area. But the entire place is stained with blood. adding to the confusion of our heroes. Noah suddenly receives a hidden quest from the system, but this time there is no clear objective or a clear reward, just a riddle for him to seek the warnings of the blood. After Noah Brown gets handed the blood behind the walls, quest by the system, he tells the fire lady that his job now is to uncover whatever creepy mystery is sealed inside that chamber. Pointing straight at it, what bugs him though is how there's zero info on the difficulty and not even a hint of a reward, which feels pretty sus. Aurelia wastes no time snapping back at him, saying if that's really the case, then he better not move a muscle, because this whole area might be way too dangerous for someone like him who just dropped into this world. She reminds him that rankers like him are meant to be out hunting soft, easy monsters, instead of strolling blind into some sketchy abyss cult business. Noah then points at the exit and asks why she doesn't just leave him behind and go to the town to recruit some people to help them. But the lady explains it's not that simple. The team that backstabbed her is still roaming around, and she's worried they might have been taken out before. She was meant to be sacrificed. If their corpses aren't found, there's a risk they could rise as undead. And that's one horror she's not about to let loose. Noah pauses for a second to think it through, and then tells her that in that case, he's just going to tag along, because he's not about to let her die here. The lady hears that and throws some playful shade at it, wondering how he plans to help when he couldn't even scratch a monster at best. But Noah fires back and reminds her how he was the one who helped when Victrol was about to turn her into a sacrifice. Aurelia brushes it off, saying that was a one-time thing and probably just a fluke, though she does admit he deserves a little credit and that he's actually getting the hang of magic faster than she expected. Noah grins and starts bragging that it's all thanks to years of playing video games, which just makes even less sense to her and leaves her more confused than impressed. As they wander deeper without a clue where they're going, they eventually reach a fork with two possible routes. Aurelia decides to go left. Once inside, Noah starts noticing how the passage feels tight and way too cramped. So Aurelia explains that this kind of setup is part of a defensive design meant to slow intruders down. She even throws a punch at the wall and figures out it's not just tough, but also reinforced with mana. After walking a bit further, they end up standing in front of this massive gate. Noah, being his usual sarcastic self, jokes if Aurelia plans on punching her way through, but to both their surprise, the thing just creaks open with a light touch. Turns out Noah was right all along, and this really is Victrola's secret study. While Noah appears lost, Aurelia flips through one of the books and finds that it holds all of the twisted old man's plans. Apparently, he had been trying to fuse his familiar into some kind of chimera. The first prototype was a total disaster, but what he really wanted was a beast with insane regeneration that could be easily manipulated, thanks to its lack of intelligence. As she keeps reading, she discovers that even the second attempt failed. Although the creature had a void affinity that was off the charts, it turned out to be too unstable to control. That's when it clicks. The next step in his plan was to find a stronger base, and she might have been the one he had in mind. Before they can even react to that horror, Noah suddenly gets a system pop up, saying the rewardless quest is now complete. And right on cue, a sound echoes in the distance, sending both of them bolting. Without a second thought, they come across a few humans barely hanging on to life, mumbling something strange about the master. As they try to make sense of it, their eyes land on a group of monsters trapped behind iron bars. This system flashes a label calling them flesh-grafted horrors, and Aurelia immediately realizes in shock that these creatures were made from the prisoners who had been locked up with her. She can't believe what she's seeing. One of the grotesque monsters, seemingly made out of several humans, turns away from them, giving Noah and Aurelia a bit of hope that maybe they won't be noticed. But that false peace doesn't last long, because one of the many faces on the thing spots the ring. Noah is wearing it, stares at him, and starts calling him the ringmaster, like it just found its purpose. The creature smashes through the bars and charges straight at Noah, while Aurelia throws out a flame burst to hold it back. Just as Noah bolts down the corridor, trying not to die, the system decides now is the perfect time to hand him a brand new quest. It wants him to escape, and promises a shiny reward of epic grade ability tome for it. But with a monster on his heels, he slams the panel shut and tries to come up with a perfect escape route. Sadly, the plan doesn't go far, because the nasty creature's tongue lashes out and grabs a mid-run. Noah fires up every last brain cell and tries to blink his way out, but for some reason the skill refuses to activate. The system chimes in ever so helpfully to inform him that the monster is suppressing his aura, which is why his abilities lock down. Just when things start looking really bad, Aurelia jumps into the fight and blasts the monster's rope, like tongue with fire, saving Noah from getting reeled in like a fish. The monster doesn't take that kindly, and instantly locks onto the fire lady, clearly seeing her as the new pest that needs to be exterminated at all costs. To make things worse, it heals almost instantly, which really throws Arialia off, since her flames don't seem to be doing much against something that heals. Faster than it burns, then the creature unleashes this ungodly scream, louder than the most dramatic woman alive. And Noah has to slap his hands over his ears to stop his eardrums from shattering. The system informs him that this was something called a phantom shriek and congratulates him on successfully resisting it. Meanwhile, the monster keeps chasing Aurelia, but she darts around using her fire magic, dodging its attacks again and again, until she finally gets close enough to roast the main body. With a well-placed burst, she glances back at Noah, casually asking if he made it through that scream. And it turns out our guy's only feeling a weird tickle in his ears before they can even catch their breath. The monster heals up again and suddenly starts spinning, like some nightmare version of a Beyblade, flinging out attacks that both of them barely manage to dodge. Not wasting a second, the fire lady launches herself into the air and dives straight at the monster, basically pulling off a Pegasus sky attack, but with flames. The fiery blow scorches the monster down to a crisp once again, and Aurelia quickly pulls back to keep some space between them. The creature wails like it's actually in pain, and its many voices sound completely helpless. Aurelia throws out another fire blast, hoping this one might finally finish it off. But of course the beast heals again, and this time it doesn't stop there, because now it starts to evolve into something even nastier, growing a massive mouth and even wings for good measure. The scream from this new and improved horror hits Noah hard, and the system throws a terror debuff on him, cutting down all his stats and slowing his mana recovery by 10%. Blood spills from his mouth as he's forced to the ground, and just as he manages to blink, Aurelia gets yanked by the monster's tongue and slammed straight into a wall, knocking her out cold now that she's down. The monster turns its attention to Noah and charges at it, but he barely dodges using Blink, which finally reaches level 2. It then heads for the fire lady to devour her. But before it can, Noah draws his blade and slashes at the monster, landing a clean hit and triggering a bleed effect, though the creature just resists it like nothing happened, right when he needs it most. Noah runs out of mana, but somehow still uses his brain and gulps down one of those disgusting mana crystals. It fills his mana right back to full, but also hits him with a bit of minor mana poison. He keeps slashing at the monster anyway, burning through his energy until he's nearly worn out. He tries using his blood drain skill next, hoping it might turn things around, but the horror beast brushes it off easily and lunges at him with its mouth wide open. Noah blinks over it just in time and goes in with another slash, praying it'll work this time. He drops to just 4% mana and swallows another stone, which instantly gives him triple mana poison. Still, he blinks into the sky and launches a Void Hunter skill called Obliterate straight down at the enemy, following it up with a double slash. As he drops onto the monster, his skills level up midair, and he crashes down for what seems like the final blow. Just then, the mana buff wears off, and the system hammers him with paralysis, a full-blown migraine, and an almost empty mana bar. This time things take a bad turn, and Noah ends up tangled in the monster's tongue, getting pulled in like he's some juicy patty burger ready to be swallowed. The beast gulps him down, but Noah isn't the type to go down that easily while inside. He stabs straight through its gut, and finally manages to inflict bleed on the disgusting creature, stacking it with his blood drain skill. That gives him just enough to partially recover his health and shake off the lingering paralysis. Keeps tearing through from the inside, pushing the bleed even further and turning it into bleed too. Eventually he slices the beast open from within and crawls out alive, completely drenched in blood, like he just enjoyed a long and soothing bloodbath. As he steps forward, the system finally hits him with a notification that the monster's been defeated and a bunch of his skills have leveled up. The quest finally wraps up, and since our guy not only made it out alive, but also managed to take down that nasty monster, some hidden objective gets cleared too, rewarding him with a legendary tome instead of the epic one he was originally promised. Somehow the system glitches out and casually announces that the monster has been absorbed and something has been unlocked, without bothering to explain anything further. Meanwhile, our blood-soaked hero collapses right there on the floor, completely wiped out and barely hanging in. After a while, he slowly regains consciousness, drags himself upright, and lazily wipes his face clean. He decides to meditate, thinking that maybe restoring mana will fix everything. But the universe clearly has other plans, because he ends up collapsing again with his head stuck to the floor, like it's been glued there. A pile of status ailments hit him all at once. Around this time, Aurelia finally wakes up and looks over at him, asking what on earth he's trying to pull by lying around like that. She then gives him a rare thank you, saying she still can't wrap her head around the fact that he saved her guts, not once but twice. Now, she even admits that both of them making it out alive feels like an actual miracle. As she walks over to check on him, she realizes what's going on and figures out that our guy's getting wrecked by some intense mana poisoning side effects. Noah asks if this is something he should actually be freaking out over, but the lady shuts him down, saying it might get a little ugly, but definitely not fatal. She even throws in a simple fix, telling him to just close his eyes and keep releasing mana until he's completely empty. Our guy takes her advice like a loyal student and goes all in on the mana dump. And somehow it actually works as he drains himself completely. However, being out of mana isn't exactly fun either, since it feels like every bit of strength is leaking out of his body, and he ends up slumping into a forced bow like he's honoring a king. Luckily though, right when his mana hits rock bottom, the symptoms of mana poisoning let go of him and he drops down softly. Finally catching a break, the fire lady tells him to just lie there and let his mana build back up on its own, which basically means staying flat and lifeless for a while. She adds that it might take him around 2 whole days before his regeneration goes back to normal. Noah turns to the lady and asks if she's got any water, or maybe a healing potion. In the moment he gets his hands on one, he gulps it down like a dying fish. Feeling a bit more alive, he gets back up and starts ranting about how badly he's lacking in abilities, and how he really needs to step up. So he decides it's finally time to check out that legendary tome he somehow ended up with. Turns out it's got something called the Lifeblood ability, and without wasting a second, he activates it. The new skill gives his health regeneration a massive boost, and when Ariel hears about it, she asks what kind of skill he just got. Noah explains that he can now store extra health and tap into it for a serious burst of regeneration whenever he's in trouble. That kind of upgrade instantly makes the lady jealous, and she throws in a comment about how he's always the one getting all these blessings, and how it's honestly unfair. But Noah throws her an equally loaded reply, saying that where he's from, just seeing magic exist in the first place feels unfair enough. Right then, the system sends him a new notification, asking him to consume something. But the whole thing looks half broken with random chunks missing, making it look like total gibberish. He then remembers the ring and slips it on, hoping it might boost his identify skill, just enough to give him some actual info about whatever this mystery item is. But even with the ring on, the description stays just as vague and messed up, with entire words missing, like someone spilled water on the system file. He ends up burning a ridiculous amount of focus, just staring at the screen, trying to figure out if this is some kind of seal, messing with the item, or if his identify skill just isn't strong enough to crack. At one point, he even starts wondering if the item itself might be busted still. Despite all that doubt, he shrugs it off and chooses to go ahead and consume the thing anyway. Just then, you get a message saying his genetic code is about to be modified, and that line alone sends an icy jolt straight down his spine. He zones out completely, leaving Aurelia panicking as she yells at him, trying to figure out what is going on. Right after a random quest drops in and weird stuff starts happening, but whatever transformation he is undergoing ends up stalling midway. Then comes another notification, saying some entity called the Devourer has used Purify on it, and that is when he starts coughing out this massive amount of thick black goo, probably the fast food leftovers, and those half-dead chickens he used to eat back on Earth. Finally, the system notifies him that he has now been purified, and every single one of his magical abilities just got a solid boost. His migraine and mana fatigue vanish, and on top of that, every single one of his attributes jumps up by a massive 5 points. He's completely wrecked by now, looking more like a half-dead zombie as he crashes down to the ground. Watching the mess unfold makes Aurelia genuinely worried, especially since it's the first time she's seen this much toxic sludge oozing out of one human she can't help but question what kind of cursed place his previous world must have been to bless him with this level of poison buildup. Meanwhile, Noah finds himself chilling in a bath, thinking about how just yesterday he was stuck at a miserable job, and now he somehow turned into a blood-sucking weirdo who pulls stuff out of thin air. As he scrubs himself down, the system helpfully pops up to inform him of the most pointless update ever, that he has now been cleaned. He doesn't really dwell on it, and after throwing on some clothes, he checks the system to see how much his attributes have gone up. That's when he notices a new Devour skill That boosts all his stats by another 5%. On top of that, he also unlocks a growth attribute that lets his strength increase naturally, either through magic or just by doing things himself, as he's still enjoying the rush of power going through him. Aurelio walks in asking the most obvious question ever, if he's awake. Noah casually tells her that he even managed to take a bath, and jokes if she wants one too. The lady points out that he already had one while she was dragging him here and checking the place around. Noah wonders aloud if he was knocked out for an hour or more, but before he can say anything else, she asks if he's not already sick of being stuck here and says it's time to leave, since there's another place they should be heading to. Noah suddenly gets the feeling that the lady might be a bit stinky and once again suggests she should take a bath. But this time she responds a little more firmly, saying that she already did. That's when it hits him that she's probably one of those people who absolutely hate winter, so he mentions how much he actually loves the cold. Aurelia shrugs and says it's one of the perks of being a fire mage, though winter never really bothered her that much anyway. Noah starts telling her how he used to play snow fights back on Earth, and then asks if she's ever heard of ice cream, which of course she hasn't. He tries to explain it to her, calling it the second best invention ever made by humanity. Right after pizza, the lady says she honestly can't tell if it's the translation spell messing up or if he's just playing weird. But either way, she's blaming him and not the system. As they finally step out into the forest, Noah feels amazing seeing the sky again, though that mood shift doesn't last long when he notices something a bit off. There aren't one, but two suns up there. Noah tells her that where he comes from, there's only one sun, and then asks how on earth they even measure day and night with two of those things in the sky. The lady gives him the most obvious answer possible, saying it's daytime when both are up and nighttime when both set. But there's a weird little gap between them that causes a first dawn and second dawn and later when they go down, a final dawn too, which honestly just sounds way too complicated for someone like Noah, who never really uses his brain for this sort of stuff, right? Then the system chimes in telling him that his run quest has been completed, and he's unlocked the map feature as a reward. Just as that happens, he notices Aurelia holding something in her hand and casually asks if that was what she had been looking for all this time. She nods and explains that it's a non-magical protective charm, usually given to children to keep evil spirits away. This triggers another quest, where Noah now has to return the necklace to its rightful owner, who's supposedly living in some village called Layfar, which, judging by the name, is probably not nearby. The difficulty level looks easy at least, and he's promised some experience points as a reward. He lets Aurelia know about it, and she suggests they should camp for the night, since the final dusk is just a few hours away. She points out that this might be his first real adventuring quest, so she's going to be the one taking the lead this time. Our guy bows down like a loyal student, calling her his teacher and showing his appreciation. Next thing, it's morning already, and Aurelia's got two giant armadillo-looking creatures ready, called armadilles here, which seem to be their best bet for crossing the forest without getting stomped by something worse. Noah feels a little uneasy, as he isn't exactly a fan of giant creatures, and nervously asks if she's really sure these things won't eat them. She climbs onto one without a second thought, and tells him that they're herbivores, actually pretty chill to tame and willing to help humans, as long as they're getting fed. Weirdly enough, the fact that they already have saddles just lying around makes it look like they were made for lazy riders like them. Noah wonders if he somehow turned into Mowgli overnight, and tries climbing onto the beast, only to get tossed off and end up kissing the ground. Aurelia is already getting ready to move out, but Noah, not about to get left behind like some side character, activates his blink skill and teleports onto the saddle. Like he owns the thing to ride, keeps going. And as the creature starts hopping over massive trees, Noah loses balance and slips right off. Since his grip game clearly needs work, he quickly uses blink and manages to grab onto a branch. But today just isn't playing nice with him, because the branch snaps and sends him crashing down. Make things worse, the creature strolls over and starts licking his face, and Noah's immediate reaction says it all, as it feels absolutely disgusting. After a messy start and enough bruises, Noah finally figures out how to stay on properly, and suddenly looks like he's having the time of his life. Acting like this might be the coolest thing he's ever done. He even claims it feels like riding on a dragon's back. And the moment that word drops, Aurelia suddenly tenses up and demands to know if there were actually dragons on Earth. Noah tries to explain that dragons were all over their movies, stories and manhwas, but they were more like mythical stuff. He then goes on about how the closest real creatures to dragons were dinosaurs, but those poor things got unlucky and went extinct long before humans even showed up. Aurelia struggles to keep up with all that, though she does agree that it was probably a blessing. Those dinos got wiped out, because from what she knows, elder dragons are rumored to wipe out entire cities whenever they randomly show up to play a little peekaboo. She adds that even though it's been centuries since the last sight, and most people now believe those dragons were just legends, she's convinced they actually existed. Their chat about dragons and dinos keeps dragging on until they finally reach the end of the forest patch. Noah asks her how many days it's going to take them to reach the village they're heading to, and Aurelia replies that it's actually just about 4 hours away. The two of them finally reach a small village, riding on the back of the armadillos, and the villagers welcome them with such excitement that it feels like they just returned from slaying a demon king. Aurelia explains that it's always the smaller villages that act this way, while Noah figures he might actually enjoy staying in a place like this. They stop by a hotel where Noah, being the sentimental type, thanks the armadillo for getting him safely through the forest, while Aurelia pays a worker to feed the creatures with hay, mixed with ground-up manicures. Noah gets curious about why she gave the guy such a generous tip, and she tells him it's just smart living, because the working class will go the extra mile. If you treat them right, he agrees, admitting that it makes total sense. Aurelia takes a playful jab, saying nothing about Noah screams normal, and tells him to keep a low profile if he doesn't want to draw unnecessary attention. He questions her logic, and she explains that while adventurers might stumble upon people from other worlds now and then, regular villagers are completely clueless. In fact, she claims even a talking plant might be easier for them to digest than a guy like him. They walk into the inn, where the innkeeper greets them with a warm welcome and asks how long they plan to stay. Aurelia replies that it's just for the night and hands over the payment for a room with 2 beds. The man slides over the key and tells them where their room is. And right after that, Aurelia tells Noah she has to go speak with a few people and suggests that he should get some rest. In the meantime, Noah clearly isn't planning on rest and already has his eyes on the group chilling in the lobby, like there's some rare species of humans who don't immediately want to murder him. Just sitting around and talking without worrying about his life actually sounds like a good idea for once, but right when he starts getting too comfy, it hits him that he said something stupid. And of course, Aurelia isn't letting that slide. She gives him a cold push and warns him to keep that nonsense to himself, telling him to take the key if he really plans on resting before she's back. Once she's out the door, the innkeeper smirks and comments that his companion sure has a fiery personality, and Noah just shrugs, saying that's probably what he likes about her most. The innkeeper then asks if he wants a drink, guessing he must be tired and thirsty after coming through the woods, and adds that only an adventurer or a fool would even try going in there, though either way a drink's probably needed. After that, Noah agrees, and the innkeeper gives the order to a waitress before leading him to a nearby table for a little chat, where he asks his name and mentions that he looks like someone new around here. Noah tells him his name and casually adds that he's new indeed, even raising his mug, while admitting that he had an awakening just yesterday. The old man practically loses it and immediately questions what he's doing, hanging around with an E-rank girl, clearly convinced that Noah must have fallen for her, and warning him that getting attached like that isn't the smartest idea. Noah takes a satisfied breath after sipping the drink and explains that it's not what he's thinking, saying that he got dragged into a dungeon and had to awaken right in the middle of it, barely making it out alive. He mentions how Aurelia has been guiding him since, and that's when the innkeeper catches on that the two of them are adventurers, just like he used to be back in the day. After that, the man introduces himself as Lorien, and when Noah checks his stat screen, he spots the title stone carved warrior, which naturally makes him ask if Lorien used to be an adventurer too. Lorien confirms it and explains that he ended up losing his magic in a tragic incident. And after that, he chose to walk away from that life, saying he's just glad to have made it out alive. Noah gets even more curious and asks what kind of monster he ran into. And Lorien goes on to say that he and his team were heading into a dungeon up north when, out of nowhere, this pearly white, translucent creature showed up from the depths and shredded through them before they even had time to react. He adds that they were completely paralyzed, and 2 of his friends got killed right away, while he ended up losing his mana. And after that day, he's never heard of that creature showing up again as Noah. Takes another sip, his lifeblood ability kicks in and purges every bit of toxin from the drink, including the stuff that would have made him feel a little buzzed. Lorien notices that and chuckles, telling him that he can shut off the ability whenever he wants, and Noah does it right away, before ordering more drinks. The innkeeper mentions that the effect can be toggled back on again, whenever needed and after a little while. Noah does just that and then decides to ask Lorien if he knows anything about some villagers who've gone missing and the team that was out looking for them. He shares that, People have been vanishing into the woods for nearly 6 months now, and even the two who were sent to investigate ended up disappearing. As well later, some adventurers were sent in to check things out, but came back empty-handed since they didn't notice anything strange. And after a while, everyone just mourned and gave up trying. He continues by explaining that the mines collapsed not long after, and since no survivors were found, the villagers had no choice but to seal the place off. They do plan to call in more adventurers to properly look into it, but he points out that sealing off the mines forever would cut off a major resource, and surviving the upcoming winter would be that much harder for everyone. He also gives a heads up that's strange. Howling noises still echo from the sealed mines, and the people are now worried about the possibility of an undead infestation if that turns out to be true. The guild will likely step in and force an evacuation, which no one in the village wants to deal with. After the conversation, Noah steps out and starts wandering around the village, eventually spotting a bit of a commotion near the mayor's place. Hearing the whispers floating around, he decides to check things out for himself. Inside, the mayor seems to be in a heated argument with an old miner. The miner is more concerned about keeping people fed during the winter, while the mayor keeps insisting on prioritizing safety, and the villagers nearby just stand there watching. Without saying a word, the mayor tries calming everyone down and asks them not to crowd his house. But right then, Noah ends up bumping into Aurelia again, and they both question what the other is doing there. Turns out she's here to privately ask the mayor about the traders from her squad. While Noah casually mentions he's just out on a walk, Noah asks if they should do something to help, and Aurelia agrees, saying they're just as resource-starved as the rest, so they might as well sew with the straightest face he can manage. Noah strolls up through the crowd and cuts right into the shouting match, telling the two old men to stop wasting time arguing, since they both clearly care about the village. He suggests they sit down and figure out a plan like adults, leaving the mayor and the miner a bit dazed. And the miner, still trying to catch up, asks who this guy even is. Aurelia watches helplessly as Noah puts on a full-blown show and introduces himself as the newly awakened adventurer and the obvious solution to all their problems. He explains that the village has trouble in the mines and needs adventurers to investigate the strange occurrences, since it might be dangerous. So he nominates himself to handle the situation and promises to come back alive. Miner points out that sending a freshly awakened adventurer is just asking for a funeral, to which our boy casually points at Aurelia and says he's not going solo, which makes her visibly annoyed. She steps up and declares that she's an E-rank, hired for a quest just a few days ago, and the village's mess might be part of it. The mayor recognizes her right away and asks about her party, and she explains that she's there looking for them, and is also willing to investigate the current problem. Noah instantly jumps in and demands compensation, flashing a business class smile, like he's sealing $1 million deal. The mayor is pleasantly surprised by the offer, and asks what their price is, and Noah smoothly asks for an ability tome. But the mayor explains what they have might not suit him, and recommends checking Windrest City, and consulting the guild hall there instead. Aurelia cuts in and asks for a degraded mana stone and 2 horses, in exchange for finishing the quest. The miner suddenly declares he'll go along with the both of them, since he's a veteran and knows the mines better than anyone. Our hero shrugs and seals the deal with a handshake with the mayor, no matter how awkward that moment is. He receives a new quest to investigate the mines, but Aurelia immediately asks him to step aside and let her do the talking. He steps back without complaint, but is then tapped on the shoulder by the miner, who asks why he looks way too old for someone newly awakened. Our boy replies that he's from a place where magic doesn't exist, which is why he started late. The miner is completely flabbergasted and asks if he's from the Dead Zone, since Noah has no clue. The miner explains that the Dead Zone is a mana-less place that drains the life out of anything living, usually left behind as a wasteland by some ancient catastrophe. Noah explains that while he doesn't come from a wasteland, his home isn't exactly a wildlife sanctuary either. But whatever the case, it definitely isn't called the Dead Zone. The old miner shrugs and tells him it doesn't really matter, as long as he helps solve the village's problem. Our boy shakes his hand in affirmation, and they agree to meet early the next morning. Later that day, he catches up with Aurelia and asks if she's found a lead. She explains that her team is in Windrest City, and they can also get him registered with the guild. Once they're there after traveling, they finally reach just outside the city, where Aurelia suddenly remembers she has to return a fallen teammate's necklace, and Noah volunteers to tag along. They arrive at a modest home and knock on the door, where the adventurer's mother opens it expecting her son. But the moment she sees the necklace and realizes the worst, she quietly asks if they found him, and Aurelia shakes her head In a heavy silence, the woman asks her daughter to let the guests in, and inside the girl gently consoles her mother, saying they'd already expected this outcome. She thanks them for returning the necklace, saying it'll help them move on, but sighs that she has nothing to offer in return. Noah calmly explains that they're still continuing the village quest, and Aurelia apologizes that they couldn't do more. He gives her a light pat on the back, and the old woman asks to be left alone. Just as they turn to go, she suddenly stops them and asks what really happened to her son. Aurelia explains that the abyssal cultists had captured many villagers, including her son, and were using them for blood sacrifices. She says that even she and Noah barely made it out alive, and she would have died if it weren't for him after escaping. They searched for survivors, but found none. Only the necklace remained. The woman then asks if they at least killed the cultists, and our hero firmly confirms that they got every single one, which brings a bit of relief to her. She begins to recall how her son Pierce had just turned 14 and had always been reckless, often wandering off monster hunting even as a kid. She adds that his father had also been an adventurer, but gave it up after marriage, though that life never really left him, and he also suffered a similar end, since Pierce had the same drive as his father. She knew he wouldn't have listened even if she'd begged him to stop. She asks if they're the same way, since they're adventurers too. Noah admits that for most of his life, he's just been trying to survive in hostile situations and outrun his past, but becoming an adventurer appealed to him because the magic powers are crazy addictive, and he really wants to explore this world. The girl looks a bit confused hearing all that, and after Aurelia gives him a not-so-subtle shove as a warning, he explains that this place feels like a completely different world because he came from a faraway land. The girl stands up with a serious look and says she has a request. She hands him the necklace and explains that Pierce would have wanted them to have it. Our hero promises to take good care of it, and after saying their goodbyes, the quest Lost Remembrance completes, rewarding him with a decent chunk of experience points. On the way back, Aurelia reminds him they need proper sleep to get up early tomorrow. Meanwhile, our hero is completely locked in on what's for dinner, which makes her pretty sure he's been an adventurer. His whole chaotic life, the dwarf, brings them to the dungeon and explains that after something destroyed the core, it's been completely dormant ever since. Our hero is surprised to learn that dungeons can die. Jerome claims losing the core is pretty much like death for a dungeon, though he says that's foolish, since one can gain riches of a king just by farming resources from a dungeon kept under tight control. In fact, many nations have come into existence purely by taming a dungeon. Outside the blocked-off dungeon, our boy wonders if he can cut through the rocks with Obliterate. In the end, he has no choice but to hide his powers and get through the rocks, the old-fashioned way surprisingly. Jerome mines like a beast and claims it wasn't any ability, just raw muscle and decades of playing Minecraft. Inside, they find lots of mana stones embedded inside the walls, because no one has looted this dungeon for a very long time. But Aurelia tells Noah to stay cautious, because there could be countless monsters lying in wait for them, so he gets ready for a fight. The dwarf explains that usually if there were monsters, they would have already appeared. Moving forward, the team finally arrives at a giant gate to the main section of the mines. What they find inside, though, leaves them completely stunned, and the smell of countless decaying bodies makes our boy nearly spill his guts. Then the trio hears a harrowing scream echoing from the distance, so they rush toward the source of the voice as fast as possible. There they find a lone miner, prone on the ground with all 4 of his limbs mutilated cleanly, like he was tortured by pure evil. Our hero assures him he should be okay and asks just what kind of monster did him in, turning around with corrupted eyes and void tentacles coming out of his head. Miner weakly warns him to run before it's too late. Our boy sweat bullets in horror as tentacles shoot out of the guy, while he screams in unimaginable suffering. And the system informs him he is a void-grafted human. Jerome and Ariel yell at Noah to run as a new quest pops up, telling him to take down Victroll's legacy project with the reward of an epic summoning skill tome. The miner is raised into the sky as black tentacles spread out of his body, like a cursed Dr. Octopus. But Noah stands his ground, ready to face it head-on. Aurelia tells the dwarf to leave while he still can, as the mutant miner fully awakens and attacks the first target in sight. Our boy blinks away and is annoyed, as he quickly learns the mutant also has a teleportation ability. Like him, out of nowhere, he feels a giant fire spell fly over him and blast the ground where the mutant miner was standing, though he is suddenly nowhere to be seen. Just then, Noah looks up and realizes the ugly bastard is coming from above, so he quickly teleports to safety. But the mutant closes the distance in an instant, while he barely holds its wild flurry of attacks back. Luckily, Aurelia gets the void mutant off him with her flames, and As she steals its attention, she notices a giant boulder above her. Using her fire magic to roll the stone off muscle, Mommy catches it like it weighs nothing and envelopes the entire boulder.